Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I'd like to discuss this article that many of you have been linking me to about the military. It says, here's one reason the U.S. military can't fix its own equipment. Manufacturers can prevent the Department of Defense from repairing certain equipment, which puts members of the military at risk. By L. Ekman. Captain Ekman is a logistics officer in the United States Marine Corps. It says, a few years ago I was standing in a South Korean field, knee-deep in mud, asking one of my Marines why he couldn't fix a broken generator. I was stunned when his frustrated reply was because of the warranty, ma'am. The TLDR of this, if you don't want to hear me read the whole article, which I'll do at the end of the video, is that they're trying to fix a generator, but they can't fix it on site because of the warranty, and the way the contract is written says that they can't do it. Right to repair affects military and civilian operations. One of the things that people ask me all the time is, well, just buy something other than Apple if you don't like what they do. And I agree, you should buy something other than Apple. You shouldn't support companies that have practices that you dislike. One of the issues is that many companies copy the way Apple does business, and then every device winds up being similar. I go after Apple because they're the front runner. They're typically the first ones to do something like have a proprietary charge controller because they change one little register and negotiate with the company and say, hey, don't sell to repair shops, don't sell to any supplier, don't put our chips on Mouser.com so nobody can replace a charge chip for our computer. They're the first to take the anti-repair measures that they've done over the past many years. It's not that they're the only company that has anti-repair measures or not a great repair program, but they're often the front runner. And the reason that I go after it is because I'm not even necessarily going after Apple. I'm going after the culture that allows companies like Apple to do what they do. And I also want to wake people up to the idea that if they don't become involved with things like this, that this is what it's going to be like with everything going forward. And I find it very surprising because I figured, okay, first it's going to be this, then farm equipment, then maybe it'll affect appliances or HVAC or something else. But the idea that it's affecting the Marine Corps just stunned me entirely. And they talk about a story of needing to send back a device to the manufacturer. It has to be picked up from Japan and go to the United States because that's what the contract says. And it takes months. Now, the issue here is that the Marines couldn't practice with the tools, meaning that in certain situations they wouldn't know what to do with the device. The Marine Corps operates in life or death situations where they need to make split-second decisions because somebody may be trying to kill them, where they very, very badly need to understand how to use this thing. So if you're going to go months without having the device because of a crappy contract, then that means that there are more Marines out there that are not going to know how to use the device, which means ultimately on the battlefield they're going to be less safe and less prepared when shit actually does hit the fan. And the entire purpose of the United States Marine Corps is that they are there when shit hits the fan. That's their job. And I find it that's this silly. You know, again, people may think that this is first world problems when you have to mail your phone all the way back to Apple, wait a week, and then wait a week to get it back, rather than have a repair shop replace the charge port in 10 minutes. Yeah, first world problem. It's a cell phone. You could have a backup cell phone, or maybe you could actually live without yourself having your flagship smartphone for a small period of time. But the same general principle that is occurring when it comes to these devices is what's occurring with military equipment. And yeah, it's one thing when people like myself are unable to come up with proper solutions, but it really surprises me when the Marine Corps find that their hands are tied. Marines have tools to create the replacement parts needed, lathes, water jets, and milling machines, but they're never used and cannot be created due to specifications, so these machines are collecting dust. So part of these contracts and part of these negotiations is they'll actually have everything on their desk that they need to do repairs to these products, and they're not allowed to use them. Does that sound familiar to my business, where I have a desk filled with tools? I have a Zalmo over there that is covered with Nerf darts and drone stuff because I'm not able to get access to the chips that I need to allow that $7,200 machine to do what it does best and replace defective chipsets with working ones. I can't get sources to good BGA chips to do these jobs. And yes, there is an active effort to keep me from having access to these types of chips, as I've talked about in many videos. And it's really interesting to see that one of the most powerful groups of people on planet Earth, like the United States Marine Corps, are in the exact same boat with me with regards to right to repair issues. Now, the most powerful military in the world has this issue that it cannot create parts to fix items that they bought because the contract says they can't make replacement parts. In the 1940s and 70s, the Department of Defense invested in R&D heavily and had the rights to fix their own stuff, but new policies and a shift in R&D from the military sector to the commercial sector encouraged use of using commercial businesses for devices. Congress encouraged federal agencies to get commercial items, which increased usage of the commercial technology in the Department of Defense. And the commercialization of goods forced the Department of Defense to accept contracts and warranties that they could avoid because they had R&D budget and new regulations. Now, this is going to be an issue when it comes to the new technology more than the old technology. So even if nothing changes, this is going to become an increasingly larger problem. The Marine Corps use a lot of gear that is really old. Paul, who works here, is a United States Marine, and he was, he's in the Marine Corps, and he had to work on radios. And he was showing me pictures of these radios that he was working on while he was active in the Marine Corps, and these radios are like from 1948, early 1950s. They're really old stuff. So those are the radios that he can fix. The newer stuff, he simply has to just send it off to the manufacturer anytime there's a problem. They're not allowed to do anything with it. Now, that old stuff is eventually going to get to a point where they either don't fix it anymore or don't use it anymore. So even if the policies that are in place right now don't change, this is a problem that is going to become exponentially worse as the old stuff stops getting used and the new stuff that was created under these new regulations within this new culture are used more often. And when I say culture, the reason I think that this is a cultural problem is because it is present everywhere. It's not one company like Apple. It's not one industry like laptops or phones. It's happening everywhere with every company in every industry. And people are we are the people that work at companies. We are the people that decide whether or not we're going to work at companies that act like this. We are the people that end up on boards of companies that decide that this is the way they're going to do business. And this is something that I don't think would have ever been allowed 50 to 70 years ago, regardless of how greedy someone is, because it's not like greed is something new. This is something I bring up. This not like people weren't greedy in 1870. It's not like people weren't greedy in 1950. Greed has always existed, but it's existed within a culture, and there are certain things that were allowed in culture and certain things that weren't allowed in culture at different times. There are certain things that even if, for example, even if you were to make something like child labor legal right now, even if it wasn't against the law, it's something that people would not take part in for the most part, because if you walk into a store like this and you see a 4 or 6 year old person rushing as fast as they can to tape boxes before the mailman comes out, society is going to look at them and go like, no. You can't do that. No, get the fuck out of here with that. And this is something that I think needs to happen with regards to repair. When I talk about right to repair legislation, again, to be honest, the right to repair legislation in its entirety, it's been going on for 4 to 5 years. I've seen the look on the politicians' face when I speak to them. I don't expect that to be something that is just going to get passed. But it does raise consumer awareness. What the real, true, honest-to-God change is going to come when the next generation of people decide that they want to become engineers, they want to become designers, they want to be on the boards of these companies, and they're going to be people that were raised within this new culture where we actually value repair again. It's okay to want to buy something that's new, but what I don't like is that people don't even have that kind of curiosity about why their old one doesn't work or the desire to open it. And the more we go in this direction of, it's not safe, dangers, as Lisa McCabe was saying in the Boston State House hearing, the less likely it is that we're ever going to get out of this problem. And I'll be honest with you, before I get to reading the article in full, to be honest with you, the first impression that I had when I read this was just, when it's little old me that can't get an ISO 9240 out of Tim Cook because he don't want to sell it to me, fine. But when it's the Marine Corps, when they say, we'd like to fix our own stuff, no, you can't. The contract says you don't. I know, it's not how business in the world works, but I would just expect them to just show up and go, oh, really? Oh, really? I'm not allowed to. I mean, just how it takes some honest balls to tell Marines, no, you can't do that. No, you can't. No. Our equipment is only going to be fixed by us at this profit margin. You're not allowed to do anything with it. And if you're not, then we're just not going to sell it to you. Ha. I mean, let's say that we lived in some crazy effed up world where Marines actually used Apple products. If they had a machine fixed by me, and I sent it back, and it was used for launch codes or whatever like that. And they said, oh, it looks like we can't hit the launch code because the USB port doesn't work properly and the internal keyboard's not working, and it seems like this little component is blown. Can you give us the value of that or help us out there? And I said, no, you got to send it back to me. And they go, but we need to. I would just expect a bunch of people to show up at my office like this. It's like, I mean, that's part of what would keep me from acting like a fuckboy when doing business with the United States Marine Corps, which is why I was stunned reading this article because of just the power imbalance. Not even just the power imbalance, but just the balls to act that way towards the military of the country that you are doing business in. I mean, oh my. It takes balls. I'll give it that, even if it is something that I find kind of repugnant in an ethical way. I have to admire the balls that it takes to say to one of the largest militaries in the world to just, I wouldn't have the balls for it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd highly appreciate it. I'm going to read the entire article for those of you who are interested in what the article has to say, and I'll also link it down below. It says, here's one reason that the U.S. military can't fix its own equipment. Manufacturers can prevent the Department of Defense from repairing certain equipment, which puts members of the military at risk. By L. Ekman. My apologies if I mispronounced your name. Captain Ekman is a logistics officer in the United States Marine Corps. This article says, a few years ago, I was standing in a South Korean field, knee-deep in mud, incredulously asking one of my maintenance marines to tell me again why he couldn't fix a broken generator. We needed the generator to support training with the United States Army and South Korean military, and I was generally unaccustomed to hearing anyone in the Marine Corps give excuses for not effectively getting a job done. I was stunned when his frustrated reply was, because of the warranty, ma'am. At the time, I hadn't heard of right to repair, and didn't know that a civilian concept could affect my job in the military. The idea behind right to repair is that you, or a third party you choose, should be able to repair something you own instead of being forced to rely on the company that originally sold it. This could involve not repairing something like an iPhone, because doing so would void a warranty, repairs which require specialized tools, diagnostic equipment, data or schematics not reasonably available to consumers, or products that are deliberately designed to prevent an end user from fixing them. In the United States, conversations about right to repair issues are increasing, especially at federal agencies and within certain industries. In July, the Federal Trade Commission hosted a workshop to address the issues that arise when a manufacturer restricts or makes it impossible for a consumer or independent repair shop to make product repairs. It has long been considered a problem with the automotive industry, electronics, and farming equipment. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have even brought it up during their presidential campaigns, siding with farmers who want to repair their own equipment. While the senators are advocating national laws, at least 20 states have considered their own right to repair legislation this year. I first heard about the term from a fellow Marine interested in problems with monopoly power and technology. A few past experiences then snapped into focus. Besides the broken generator in South Korea, I remembered working at a maintenance unit in Okinawa, Japan, watching as engines were packed up and shipped back to contractors in the United States for repairs, because that's what the contract says. This process took months. With every engine sent back, Marines lost the opportunity to practice the skills they might need one day on the battlefield, where contractor support is inordinately expensive, unreliable, or non-existent. I also recalled how Marines have the ability to manufacture parts using water jets, lathes, and milling machines, as well as newer 3D printers, but that these tools often sit idle in maintenance bays alongside broken-down military equipment. Although parts from the manufacturer aren't available to repair the equipment, we aren't allowed to make the parts ourselves due to specifications. How pervasive is this issue for the most powerful military in the world? And what does it mean for a military that is expected to operate in the most austere and hostile environments to not possess the experience, training, or tools to fix its own technical equipment? These issues have multiple causes, from historic changes in the United States economy, laws and rules adopted as part of military procurement, reform, and military industrial-based consolidations, which I included in my comment written with my colleague, Major Lucas. I'm going to mispronounce the last name, so I'm not going to say it because he's a Marine and can probably kick my ass, to the FTC, but the issues mirror what happened in the civilian sphere. In the case of the armed services, the Department of Defense from 1940s to the 1970s significantly invested in research and development and unquestionably owned the right to repair the equipment it developed. In the years since, much of the research and development has shifted to the commercial sector. Increasingly, the commercial sector develops cutting-edge technology that also has military uses, such as communication technologies, software, satellite launches, and drones. To compound the impact of increasingly technical military systems, a new set of political philosophies favorable to corporate consolidation emerged in the 1970s, leading to merger waves across the civilian sector. Strategists in the national security world responded by arguing that the Defense Department needed to become a better customer in order to have access to this commercially developed technology. Consequently, the department decided that it needed to be more cooperative and less aggressive when negotiating terms with commercial companies that produce military equipment or perform services in support of the military. In alignment with this new paradigm, policymakers simplified the Federal Acquisition Regulation in 1994 and 1995, exempting commercial items from a large portion of the rules, as well as expanding the definition of what is a commercial item to include goods that could be seen as specialized military goods. Congress also encouraged federal agencies to purchase commercial items to the maximum extent practicable. These changes fueled high rates of commercial purchases, which, coupled with consolidation in the defense industry, contributed to the Defense Department's increased use of commercial technology and the negotiation of single-source contracts. Ultimately, the power dynamic shifted between the Defense Department and commercial industry, forcing the department to accept warranties, contracts, or prices that it could previously avoid, all thanks to changes in research and development funding, regulations, and a lack of competition. The effects of right to repair paradigm will become only more significant and restrictive as older military vehicles and systems are replaced with equipment that is more complex and involving more electronics. Already complicated equipment designs lead to situations where the manufacturer is the only source for repairs. Fortunately, the FTC's workshop and industry conversations are putting this issue on the radar. A solution will require protection against onerous contracting regimes for all Americans, whether farmers, iPhone owners, or the Pentagon. Fundamentally, service members just want to ensure that their gear is ready to meet mission requirements. While a broken generator or a tactile vehicle may seem like smaller issues, the implications are much larger when a combat ship or a fighter jet needs to be fixed. What happens when those systems break somewhere with limited communications or transportation? Will the Department of Defense get stuck in the mud because of a warranty? That's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I hope you learned something.
Morning breaks beyond the night, and she's a world away. Through crowded streets, this quiet hooded stranger makes her way. Lost in this moment is where I want to stay. This can't be broken.